All right, welcome to our first AP review. We're going to start with the unit on population and migration. But first we're going to talk about the test itself. All right, as you guys know, you should have received an email about this from the AP people, as well as the emails that I have sent you. But your test is scheduled for Tuesday, May the 12th. It is by time zone. So we are in the central time zone, so your test will be at 3 o'clock. You will need to take it either on your laptop, a desktop, an iPad, or you can even take it on your phone, and you can also write it. We'll talk about that in just a second. All right, you will need to have, make sure it's charged or plugged in. All right, you will have 45 minutes to take the test. And as you can see on the slide, the test will consist of 2 questions. The first question will be 25 minutes. It will consist of a free response question with 2 stimuli, meaning it'll have 2 maps, pictures, charts, or graphs that you might be able to use in answering the question. All right, you'll have 25 minutes to read it, to respond, and upload it. So please make sure that you are taking the time and watching your time so that you can upload it before the question shuts down. The second question will be 15 minutes, and it will consist of 1 stimuli, right? 1 map, chart. There's that dang thing again. All right, so you need to make sure that you are watching your time. All right, the longer question will be weighted heavier than the second, 55%, right, to 45%. Notice also on the right side of the screen, it talks about what it is the questions are going to give you and what kind of answer they are expecting, right? So they were going to present you with an authentic geographic situation. So would the COVID-19 situation be prime target? Sure, it's something just like that. They're going to give you some kind of map, and they want you to describe, explain, and apply and analyze. If you guys remember back to the vocabulary that I gave you regarding the different questions on the AP test, notice there's no identify or define on this particular list. All right, you're not going to be asked those simple softball questions about identify and define. They want you to get right to it. They want you to spend your time analyzing, describing, explaining. Right? Don't don't give them a one sentence answer. That's not going to cut it for this one, right? In order to be prepared for this test, you got to know everything. It says units 1 and 5, but you need to know everything, right? You need to know and be able to discuss urbanization, agriculture, development, culture, language, religion, all the things that we've covered in order to make a very cohesive and analytical type of response to these questions. All right, you will notice that there's a makeup date for June 1. From what I have been told, it's probably best that you take it on May the 12th. That way, if you encounter any kind of issue, some disturbance in your internet, or some other, technological issue that prevents you from taking it, that you can then get with the AP people and see whether or not they will give you the second test. Also, for those of you who are trying to be exempt from my final, you will notice on the sheet that I've given you that May the 12th is the test that you have to take. I need to know that you have taken the test in order to be able to be exempt from my final. June 1st is obviously after the final. You are welcome to take the June 1st test. And if you want to take the June 1st test and not give yourself any kind of backup if something goes wrong, that's fine. You just can't be exempt from my final. But you guys know what my final is going to be. It's going to be very similar to what the midterm was. So it's not going to be anything very difficult. All right, in order to get ready for that test, you need to be reviewing. And I've spoken to you guys before on Zoom classes and through emails that I hope that you are doing multiple things to get ready for this test. All right, I heavily encourage you to watch the AP College Board YouTube channel, right? They've already started their review. All of those videos are there for you to watch. These are brought to you by 2 people who are AP readers, right? So they'll give you a good idea of what the types of things that you should be looking at. There are multiple videos. They are 45-ish minutes long. So you need to be looking at those. And they give you questions at the end of each one that are potentially types of free response questions. You guys want to be looking at those, working on them. In the next video, they will help you answer them. Under AP documents, if you go under just straight to course content, there's something that says AP documents. Those are the Blackboard materials. Those are ones that I've used in the past. There are plenty of multiple choice questions and free response questions with answers. And I highly recommend that you spend some time with them. Even though there is no multiple choice on this particular AP test, you need to know the material that's covered in those multiple choice questions. All right, also we've talked about the McGraw-Hill website. That information can be found in the announcements. Go in there if you haven't started that already. And then, of course, my AP review materials that we're going to start with now. Those are all great sources, and if you can go through those as much as you can, particularly the AP College Board, you're going to put yourself in a much better position to do well in this test. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start with an overview of population, and then we're going to talk about migration. And this is going to hopefully help you understand the dynamics, the growth, and the change of populations. So first thing we're going to start with is a couple of terms that we have talked about before, but it's been a really long time, so let's spend a few minutes with them. All right, if we're going to talk about population, right, we're talking about births, deaths, and migration, right? Not immigration or emigration, just migration in general, migration being movement. All right, when we talk about births and deaths, the first thing that should come to your mind is natural increase, right? Sometimes you'll see it in materials called RNI, or rate of natural increase, right? The rate of natural increase is births minus deaths, right? That's natural increase. Nobody moving in or anybody moving out, just births minus deaths. All right, if we're going to look at the whole population picture, you want to talk about demographics. That's a look at population. So it's births, deaths, plus migration, right? Migration is twofold. Immigration, in, people coming into your country, right? And emigration with an E, like exit, people leaving your country, right? So if you take the people coming in, the people going out, and the births and deaths, that will give you your total population. When we talk about birth rate, we're often talking about the crude birth rate, right? That's just the number of live births per 1,000 people in the population, right? When we talk about birth rates, there's a couple of things you want to look at, right? Is there a high birth rate or a low birth rate? As we'll talk about as we get further into this, birth rates tie into whether or not this is a core country or peripheral country. Core countries having lower birth rates, peripheral countries having higher birth rates, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. When you talk about death rates, or the crude death rate, you're talking about the number of people who die per 1,000 people, and both the birth rate and the death rate are within a given year, right? We want to look at it as a snapshot of a particular time, right? Birth rate or death rates tell you a lot about the country as well. High death rates are usually associated with peripheral countries. Low death rates are usually associated with a core country. Why is that? Core countries have longer life expectancies. Core countries have better access to better nutrition and better medical care, right? So they tend to live longer. So death rates are lower, and people tend to die at a much, older age. All right. I don't think sometimes on this test they will have you do a math problem. I just don't think they're going to have time for that. So I don't think you necessarily have to worry about that. And you'll see that in some of the AP documents that I've given you. All right. When we talk about population terms, also think about doubling time, right? Doubling time is the time that it would take for a country to double its size, right? When we used to look at countries, they used to double fairly quickly. If you guys remember back to the population of the United States, or look at the graph that we've got here, right? To go from 2 billion people to 4 billion people, right? How long that took, right? How long did it take to go from 4 billion to 8 billion, right? It used to be getting shorter. The shorter the time, the larger the population. The longer the doubling time, the slower the rate of growth, right? We can look at various different countries and see how that plays out, right? The United States probably is not going to double their population in our lifetime, probably in our kids' lifetimes. But a country like Nigeria is expected to double its population in a relatively short period of time, right? Because again, it's a peripheral country seeing tremendous amounts of growth, right? Let's then add in migration. Nope, not there yet. Hang on. Go back. All right. Add in migration provides you with the total amount of population as well, right? Migration coming in, and migration going out. Then you want to look at the net migration rate. What's the difference? Do I have more people leaving or more people coming in? In a country like the United States, you're going to have more people coming in, right, than leaving. A place that like Yemen, which is in the middle of a civil war, is going to have more people moving out, right? The last term that we want to talk about before we get to the demographic transition is replacement rate, right? Remember replacement, or actually a couple of definitions. Replacement rate typically is 2.1, right? Having 2.1 children is replacing the number of people that are, 2 parents, 2 children. Right? It is the amount that it takes, the number of children it takes to replace the people that are dying. If you have a replacement rate of 2.1, right, then you are basically at no growth. A higher replacement rate, where you're having 2.3, 4, 5 kids, right, you are going to be experiencing some level of growth. That term is heavily tied to the total fertility rate, or TFR. Total fertility rate is the number of children that a woman may be expected to have during childbearing years, right? And that's a good snapshot of how you can look at the development of a country. A country that has a high TFR, right, is typically an agricultural country that needs to have children in order to, work the farm. Lower total fertility rates will play into a core country, right, that has women who are working and probably not having as many children. And so that could be, so they'll have a lower total fertility rate. That population rate is then growing. All right, I'm going to stop this one here because I'm about to run out of time. And we're going to pick up with the demographic transition model.